Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. U.S. Coast Guard makes drug bust in the Caribbean Sea. This story takes the lead in our 1051st edition of Caribbean Perspective for Tuesday, 16th February 2021. Details after this break.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world, and you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now makes it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket, and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
Welcome back. The United States Coast Guard says a crew of its cutter Mohawk returned to its home port in Key West, Florida, after a 59-day patrol in the Caribbean Sea, in which 4 drug vessels were seized, 5 suspected drug smugglers detained, and about 4,000 pounds of cocaine seized with a street value of about 69 million US dollars. These interdictions reflect teamwork and unwavering resolve between the Coast Guard, Federal Law Enforcement, Department of Defense, and our international partners to protect the region against a scourge of transnational criminal organizations, said Commander James J. Jarnack, Coast Guard Cutter Mohawk Commanding Officer. The crew of Mohawk demonstrated remarkable enthusiasm and commitment during the execution of our missions over the last 8 weeks, and it remains my pleasure to serve with and for them, he added. During the patrol, the U.S. Coast Guard said the Mohawk's crew worked with multiple interagency and international maritime patrol aircraft and surface assets to counter transnational criminal organizations and hinder the illicit flow of drugs, people, and other dangerous cargo into the United States. The U.S. Coast Guard said this includes joint operations with Dominican Republic Navy and Panamanian law enforcement officers, which further strengthen foreign partnerships to detect, deter, and interdict vessels engaged in illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing within the exclusive economic zone of Panama. In other news, a brazen and bold-faced attack to deceive the nation. That's how Member of Parliament for Oropouche West, Davendranath Tanku, in this describing statement made by Finance Minister Colm Imbert, who revealed the country's revenue for the first 4 months of fiscal 2021. TV6's Joseph Lopez tells us more.
Speaking with reporters at the opposition headquarters in Port of Spain, Shadow Minister of Finance Davendranath Tanku says that Finance Minister Colm Imbert has confessed 2 glaring truths in his recent virtual press conference. They are that the country has run out of money and that the Keith Rowley administration has run out of lies.
And he seems content to borrow and spend, digging this country deeper into debt every day until his dream materializes. When the minister borrows, ladies and gentlemen, you pay. When he borrows, you pay. When he fails to account, as has been happening, you still have to pay. And while he borrows, he seeks to comfort Trinidad and Tobago with comparisons to other countries like the United States and England, which have large debt to GDP ratios.
Tanku says, since the government's October 5th, 2020 budget, the Minister of Finance failed to remain true on his promises and laments that nothing has been done in almost 5 months since. This, he adds, is the main reason why the investment climate remains poor, which precludes any financial flows from investors.
What a debt to GDP ratio of 80% means to the average Trinidadian is that 8 out of every $10 we earn has to be used to pay debt, leaving us with little to run the country, to provide services in the hospitals, in health centers, to fix roads, to build bridges, to pay pensions, to fix hospitals, and to pay salaries, to pay gate for students. And this minister has told us of his intent to continue to borrow and to draw down on our savings to pay debt.
Also weighing in on the issue was the Shadow Minister of Trade and Industry, Rushton Paré, who sought to slam the government for its expenditure of $373 billion at the end of fiscal 2020.
The cost of that deception to the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago so far has been $323 billion.
The MP says for 6 years, the Minister of Finance has piled deception on top of deception in handling the country's economy. And even amidst the current unprecedented economic crisis the country is facing, the Rowley administration has not created an enabling environment for domestic and international investments.
We have to come here as an opposition to paint a picture of what's happening in the wider economy, because citizens of this country is living it every day. The Minister of Finance last week saw an opportunity, again, very deceptive Trojan horse, while the country was campaigning and mourning the loss of a citizen and decrying and complaining of the failure of the government to protect the citizens. The Minister of Finance comes with this Trojan horse and speaks a bit of truth, the true status of economy. We have to borrow, we have to dip into the HSL just to pay salaries and wages. If that is not a failure by a government, I am not sure what is.
The opposition says the government has been typically tardy in responding to any crisis faced by this country. They say that an alert and aggressive administration should have been more proactive and should have held discussions with representatives of all primary stakeholders to seek viable solutions to the litany of woes presently plaguing our country. Joseph Lopez, TV6 News.
The Law Association of Trinidad and Tobago is calling for a transparent and comprehensive investigation into the deaths of Andrew Morris and Joel Balcon, suspects in the murder and kidnapping of Andrea Barrett. Joseph Lopez again reports.
The call comes following the publication of an investigative story of the Sunday Express. The Law Association wants the Minister of National Security and the Director of Public Prosecutions to do all within the remit of their respective offices to ensure that a thorough and independent investigation is promptly carried out into the deaths of Andrew Morris and Joel Balcon. It notes that a Sunday Express report points to the existence of a video recording of the initial arrest of Andrew Morris. It describes the brutal interrogation of Morris by heavily armed members of SWAT who kicked him over his head and body while he lay on the ground, with one officer striking him on his back with a fatal object. An autopsy report was prepared by Professor Herbert Daisley. Professor Daisley is said to have concluded that Morris died from severe blunt force trauma to his chest, abdomen, limbs, and skull, and that the injuries sustained to his skull were fatal. These reports put into question the accuracy of the explanation given by the police for Morris's death in police custody, that he fell off a chair, and gave rise to the obvious need for the institution of a prompt, thorough, and independent criminal investigation into the possible homicide of Morris. These reports also give rise to concern over the circumstances in which Joel Balcon met his death in police custody. Joseph Lopez, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
In Antigua, the Prime Minister there, Gaston Brown, has taken the country's opposition to task over certain criticisms it has made over his government's handling of the country's finances. Brown, the country's finance minister, was at the time wrapping up debate on the 2021 budget. Here is more with Andy LeBird.
There's been little compromise by the government on the issue of the IMF. Prime Minister Brown feels it goes to the whole matter of sovereignty, and he is staunch in his defense. He says he's not prepared to acquiesce to the suggestions of the IMF when his government has a responsibility to provide to the basic needs of its citizens.
So how are you going to tell us to take that $100 million from CIP and put it in savings? Then what you're going to do, you're going to create a deficit of $200 million, and then you have to go and borrow at about 78% when you're getting 2% on the savings. It makes no sense. It's nonsensical. And that is why we are taking a decision. We're not getting any fight with them, any quarrels with them. They can write whatever they wish. We review their reports, and if whatever they say makes sense, certainly we'll take their advice. But we have decided not to publish their statements because they are literally encroaching on our sovereignty. And we're not yielding our sovereignty to anyone.
Brown is also unwilling to expose the public sector to the possibilities of job loss by committing Antigua and Barbuda to the imposition of IMF conditions.
But up to yesterday, I had a conversation with the distinguished U.S. ambassador. And her question to me was, of the $400-something million that they're using to service debt, how much of it are you going to use to pay the Paris Club? I said to her, Ambassador, you ought to know that if we were to take on the $450 million in Paris Club loans, then we have to let go at least 3,000 people. And that's not under consideration. There's no way that we can consider that.
Brown says he's resolved that his government will not fall prey to the indiscretions that befell the previous government.
After the UPB got the moratorium of about 3 years, they had 4 years to repay. And the repayment started probably about, 6 months before we came in. So the UPB defaulted. Then we had to take $300 million of CIP money to repay the IMF loan within a 4-year period. So when they asked where did the CIP money go, 300 million of it was utilized to repay the IMF. 400 million was utilized to reduce the domestic debt, the $2 billion that you borrowed. Another $180 million was utilized to pay Social Security.
Some opposition parliamentarians in Guyana were prevented from entering the chambers, while others were prevented from exiting, as President Irfan Ali turned up to deliver a feature address at the ceremonial opening of the 12th Parliament on Thursday afternoon. More from Wendell Badri of HGP Nightly News.
David Patterson and Sherrod Duncan were at least two of the opposition members who claimed they were assaulted by police as they staged protests outside the Artichon Conference Centre sometime after lunch on Thursday, as a number of members on the opposition bench lined the gate of the conference centre, demanding to be either let into the compound or, for those who were locked in, to be let out.
Now we know that the Parliament is a sacred house, but we don't want to be in there to listen to no fraudulent president. And I am so sorry that we can't even come outside. Look at this. What is this? We can't even come outside. We can't go outside. What kind of democracy is this?
Sherrod Duncan, who monitors home affairs matters in the National Assembly from the opposition perspective, said that he was fearful for his life as he was assaulted while holding his placard and peacefully staging a protest.
And so they sought to detain me against my will. I was assaulted and in fear for my life as unlawful force was applied to my person.
Patterson showed this newscast a rip to his jeans, which he said occurred while being assaulted by officers. The MP, who is also chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, described it as a sad day for the country, given what transpired.
It's a sad, sad day. In nowhere possible, no matter how diverse your opinions in any country, you should be able to get into your own parliament, an elected person.
Meanwhile, this newscast questioned the leader of the opposition, Joseph Harmon, about what actions would be taken to treat with what transpired. This is what he had to say.
We will take a full range of actions. A full range. It can be legal, it can be political and otherwise, but from the whole continuum of actions which has to be taken, we will take those actions.
Harmon also had this to say when he was asked whether any reason was given as to why the members of parliament were being prevented from entering or leaving the compound.
This lockout is not going to go down well. And all these police men and women who are carrying out those instructions, they've actually prevented MPs from coming out who want to leave. Some people who got medication in the vehicles that are going for it, they can't get it out. If somebody fall in there and collapse, it is on their feet and the hands away from Ali.
While the National Assembly convened on Thursday, a number of bills were scheduled to come up for reading and to be debated. Wendell Badri, HGP Nightly News.
Did you know that your friends and family can now shop at the Food Fair from anywhere in the world? And you can receive here in Grenada? The Food Fair and GrenadaMarket.com now make it possible through secure online shopping and personalized customer service. Simply send your loved ones a list of your preferred items or let them fill an online basket and the items will be available for pickup or delivery. Visit GrenadaMarket.com or thefoodfair.gd today for more details. The new norm. Spread the news.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.